the idea of Sangya is to not just manufacture in India, but to also have an entire ecosystem of anything pleasure related manufactured and sold here in India.
I'm a queer person, so a lot of the dialogue I wanted to create around sex was pleasure first, was curiosity first.
Again, there were so many misconceptions about this whole industry when we started. When we started, we were so certain that our customers are primarily going to be from all the metro cities, from the big four cities.
I think COVID also had a lot to do with the way people were addressing these aspects of their lives, right?
Speaking about sexual health is as important as speaking about physical health as well as mental health. There is so much to explore, there is so much to know, there is so much to talk about. At what age we should be discussing, what are the tools that are available? Is it just about the pleasure, or is it something that we all need to talk about? It's something that all parents needs to know, it's something that every young person needs to know, what options that are there in India, how the market looks like. With all these questions, who else is the best person to talk to or to discuss with the team from Sangya Project? Today, we have a wonderful podcast with Shweta and Tanisha, where we talked about Sangya projects, their funding history, their journey, their future plans, and their products. And why do we need to speak about something about the sexual pleasure and the industry and the market in India on the platform called Health Commune? It's pretty interesting. Listen to our podcast and let us know your thoughts. Hello, how are you guys doing?
Hi, really excited to be here.
Yes, and thank you so much for joining today. It's been so many days. I was actually looking forward to this podcast, and let's directly start because I really want to know. So, what I want to know is how exactly you have started this journey. So, first, I want to know what is Sankhya Project and where exactly it started. How did you join? Who came up with the idea?
It was a combined idea for all of us, but it mainly started because I was doing a bit of sex ed. I wanted to be a sex educator, and the program that I was doing was basically training me to work in classrooms. And it was a great program, but the more time I spent doing that and the more practice I got preparing myself to work with children, I realized that so much of the focus is just on preventing pregnancy and preventing STIs that anything in between that is about actual pleasure and curiosity and teaching children about how to explore that curiosity in a safe way is not really there. That depth and nuance is still not there. And again, because so many stakeholders are involved in different schools or in different organizations that you work with, you constantly have to adjust the program based on what parents may ask you to do or the teachers and principals may ask you to do, which is fair enough because a stranger is coming to your classroom and teaching your child about sex and sex ed. But what that means then is that the material keeps changing school to school and you're not actually focusing on what the children's curiosities are. And that's not something I was comfortable with. I'm a queer person, so a lot of the dialogue I wanted to create around sex was pleasure first, was curiosity first. And I realized that the kind of conversation I wanted to make was not with the children directly, but with the parents and teachers who would then be having those conversations with those minors, and they needed to feel more confident first about whether or not they had the language and the tools to discuss sex with children. So instead of going into classrooms, we came to Instagram first because it seemed like a great platform where there wouldn't be much censorship and we would have direct access to adults, 18 plus, English speaking. And I started writing sex ed material there. And that's when my partners Ashish and Shweta stepped in and they said, hey, this can be so much more than just writing online.
Yeah, I mean, it started with a sex ed page first on Insta where we would talk about a lot of things that are generally not spoken about. Slowly, that led to us giving people space to talk about their experiences. I mean, at that time, we didn't know that it would take off the way it took off, and that we were providing a space for people to talk about their experiences where they had not felt safe to talk about those experiences before. So there were more and more people who wanted to talk about their experiences and write for us and partner with us. And we did a year of that. And after a year is when we realized that it had a lot more potential than this, and we wanted to monetize it, but also we did not want to put any paywall on the content because we want that to be free at any given point in time. And that's when we decided that it would be a good time to provide people tools to explore their sexuality, all the things that we've talked about in the last year. Let's give them tools to explore that without telling them how it is that they should explore it. So even the idea of selling pleasure products on Sangya was just to give them that platform to talk, to explore, to see for themselves what it is that they like. And that's how we started selling. So the selling happened about a year into the page having been started. So
When was this?
so the page started 3 years ago, and today actually, as it so happens, is our second birthday.
Oh,
We started selling 2 years ago today. So yeah,
So nice,
happy
huh?
birthday, Sangya. So we started selling 2 years ago today. So in all, it's been 3 years.
So first year you were completely focusing
Only
on the
content.
sex education
Yeah.
Yes,
related
yes.
content.
Yeah.
We
And
weren't
you-
selling in that first year.
Okay, and you were initially focusing on discussing in the schools and children, but then you thought Instagram is like a very great platform, and that's where all this started. So are you still doing the school-based education or in-person
No,
education?
I think what happened with the start on Instagram is that we really wanted to see what adults feel like they don't know about sex or are not sure about sex and pleasure. So it was a learning curve for us as well, because we started writing out and saying, okay, what do people actually want to know? And I think the assumption was that, there's a lot of anatomy that we don't learn in school. Maybe adults still want to talk about that. And to some extent, it's true. They still want that refresher on what is happening in the body. But there is so much also happening with mental health subjects that nobody really combines with sex and sexual health unless they've had some very traumatic experience. And then, like, a medical professional will say, hey, there's a link here, you know. So once we started that work of working with adults, I think it just became a very comfortable element for us, because we realized that we are learning at the same time. We are growing. We're finding people who think like us or agree with us or are giving us so much perspective on our own personal experiences that it's allowing us also to grow. It's giving us a chance to step out of our comfort zone and say, oh, this is the pain we experienced when we were younger. So I think in that way now it's become a space where we prefer talking to adults, because we don't want to come to your house and teach your child. We don't think we are that equipped to handle this conversation, but we are equipped to sit with you and build this conversation with you so that you feel confident when you talk to your children at home.
Correct. So how's, like, it's been 3 years, right? Like, you started with talking to people, allowing them a platform where they can express themselves. I know that there are like some platforms which is like anonymously they will ask questions and people are okay to talk. But in a forum, if you ask them to discuss, hardly few will have any queries.
Correct.
So, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think this is a very open platform that you have started. And how's the journey so far? Like, do you think people are changing in last 3 years? Are they able to talk, or are they open about discussing all these things?
Definitely, the landscape, even in the last 3 years that we've started, has changed so much. I mean, what began as, even when we started, we thought that a lot of it would be taboo, which it still is. But when we started, we thought that we would get a lot of hate for it, that people wouldn't be open for it. But as it so happens, the time has never been more ripe in this country for these conversations, because people are getting tired of having all these conversations being swept under the rug. Everyone wants to talk about it because people are slowly understanding and coming to terms with the fact that this is just an extension of their well-being, and that it needn't be something that just happens in hushed tones behind closed doors, and that these conversations lead to there being an impact on mental health as well. And so even in these 3 years, what started with some form of skepticism, we have people openly sharing our posts, openly talking about it. Even in terms of other forms of media, other magazines, other shows, other companies, just in the last 3 years, so many of them have come up. So many of them are now openly talking about it. There's the conversation generally speaking has increased so much in the last few years. And I think the way the law is also progressing has something to do with it, in the sense that because there is so much importance now that's given to privacy being the fundamental right, people are really owning up to that yes, this is my private life. Yes, I do need to know about this. So in that sense, there has been a tremendous change. And where we thought we would get a lot of hate, it's been quite the opposite. We've actually we've actually gotten a lot of love,
Okay.
way more than I had anticipated when we began this. I was really ready for a lot of hate, and somehow 3 years later, that still has not happened, thankfully.
Yeah, I think COVID also had a lot to do with the way people were addressing these aspects of their lives, right? Because whether we want to admit it or not, it escalated to a conversation of life and death for so many of us, and we're sitting alone at home.
Yeah.
You know, either you don't get to see your partner at all because of the lockdowns, and you're in separate houses or cities or states, and you're second guessing whether the relationship is worth that kind of distance and effort, or you were just stuck at home with your partner day in and day out and wondering, oh God, did I make the right choices? Is this meant to be? So I think that small spark was also enough for people to take a step back and say, oh, is this what my sexual identity will be for the rest of my life? Is this what my health will look like for the rest of my life? Is this how we're defining intimacy and connection? Is this what I actually want from my life? So I think those tiny moments and those tiny questions made people wonder how they operate as a family or as a unit, but also take a step back and wonder how they operate as an individual. So a lot of curiosity started kicking in, and globally there was just a spike in dialogue around sex and pleasure, because everyone was talking about how, you know, just because you can't date anymore or have an active sexual life doesn't mean you don't take care of yourself, masturbate, find solo pleasure, and all of that just kept piling up online. So even if in your own circles nobody was talking about it, you're scrolling online, someone's talking about it. That, I think, led to a lot of momentum to that dialogue of people just taking a step back and saying, I don't want to assume I'm happy in this relationship because everybody else is telling me that this is the normal thing to do. I want to figure out for myself what happiness looks like, what stability and intimacy and connection look like. And then I think that's how so many brands and just generally sex education as well picked up in India specifically.
Correct. So if I ask you that in one statement, explain what your company is about, what that will be?
Exploring pleasure in all its nuances.
Yeah.
And that's true in every sense of the term. That's true not just in the sense of take these tools and explore your sexuality, but that's also true in the sense of hear other people's perspective on this and also know that you're not alone in your experiences, and that every time you have gone through something where in this journey of exploring your sexuality and have felt alone, you're not alone, because so many of us have felt those same things, but because these conversations were not open for such a long time, that we have felt so alone in those experiences, and then that has had an adverse impact on our respective mental health. So I think it's exploring sexuality and all.
Beautiful. And in terms of services you're offering, you have products, e-commerce site of your own. You have products for women, you have products for men, you also have products for couples, and then lots of education material is available on your Instagram page. What else is there which I am not aware of right now?
But we have there's a whole range of also kinkwear. So that's not just toys. I mean, when we talk about toys, you're looking at stuff that vibrates and does not vibrate, and just things that are used for stimulation. But then you have all this range of kinkwear and bondage and impact play, which is also we introduced that a few months ago, but that's also, the response to that has been pretty warm. And that's also a whole new range of things that are made with PU leather and are completely made in India. So apart from toys, there are also kinkwear that we offer.
Yes. And how's the response to that? Is it only a specific target audience or community who's actually going for that, or do you think everybody needs such kind of tools to enhance their pleasure?
There's a lot of curiosity. I mean, where the kink stuff is concerned, our range starts from things that are meant for people who've not explored this before. So these are not extremely hardcore kinkwear or bondage or impact play stuff, but stuff that can be used for people who are just generally curious about it. So even in terms of the impact that these variables have is not extremely hard on the body. So even for anyone who's just curious to experiment, they're great. So we have a lot of people who are just generally curious because they haven't had these available to them before, at
Correct.
least not in a good quality. I mean, of course, these are available on various websites, but then you have that trust issue, and
Yeah.
a lot of people are living with their family. They're not sure of how it's going to be delivered, if it's going to be discreet, what the packaging is going to be like, what the material is going to be like, or after sale services, for example. So of course, yes, these have been available online for people, but I think quality availability is something that has been lacking up until now, and us and some other companies are now providing that. So there is that element of curiosity that has spiked up. So the response has been great, a lot more than what we thought it would be.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think when we started with a lot of the kinkwear and kink items, we thought that the usage of it would specifically be, like you rightly said as well, right, to enhance pleasure or to experiment in the bedroom and just explore a person's identity as well. But we realized a lot of people were just wearing it outside the bedroom for personal delight as well, you know.
Correct.
Like, for example, we have this cock ring that is actually at its widest size can sit around the wrist as a bracelet. And a couple of people messaged us saying that they wore it to their office, you know.
People
So
wear the collars outside.
yeah, the harnesses they'll either wear on top of
correct,
their corporate wear, or even when we had this range of lingerie available, there were people who were excited to wear it under their clothes on date night, saying that even if this doesn't lead to sex at the end of the night, I just want to know
you
that
get into
it's
that
there.
mood, right?
Yeah, you know. So I think that was also telling for me, at least, that it's not so much about someone else looking at me and finding me attractive. It's that I know I'm attractive underneath this shirt and with the shirt on.
Correct.
Whether this date goes well or not is your problem. But I had fun because I wore this thing that I really like.
Yeah, there's been a lot of play with it. People send us
Yeah.
pictures wearing the harnesses on top of their shirts, and it's really endearing.
It looks
because-
stylish. I've seen the pictures. It looks very stylish, the harness part.
Yeah, I
I'll
can-
tell
Yeah.
you one story that reminds me what you're saying. There's a friend of mine. She has I think her son is around 8 or so. She's a single mom, very focused and very busy, very at a very high position in one of her MNC, and she's not in any relation, right? And I know that because she's a very close friend of mine. And she's a single mom, and she's like, I don't have time, and currently I don't want to get into any very serious relation or even dating scene. And I was like, how are you managing? Like, is it okay? Are you fine? So I talked to her, and I was in her city, and I went to her place, and she has a great collection of lingerie, like great collection,
Nice.
beautiful wardrobe, everything. And I was like, okay, so she's like, it's for me. I like it. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly. That's
and
the
I
thing.
was like I'm inspired. I'm going to spend extra money for this now because she has such a great collection, and she's like, this is where I have purchased this from. This is what I picked up from this. This is this fabric. This is this brand, and she was so happy with all that. And I know, like, if I would have said that yeah, she's dating or she's in relation, all that, I know that she's not. But she's like, I am doing it for myself, and I was like, I was really happy, you know, to see that yeah, you really need to do it. It's not always about you're doing for someone else.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's the thing with a lot of toys as well, right? I mean, it's not, apart from the couple play, it's also owning your sexuality, not in the sense that yes, I'm sexual, but also that you deserve it. I mean, like you said, the purchase of the lingerie, I mean, it makes you feel a certain way when you wear these things. It's literally about how it makes you feel.
Yeah.
And it's not about the other person so much.
Yes. Yes.
And also on that note about toys, right? I know people who are also happy to use these products because orgasming is something that helps with their migraines or their period cramps, right? So for us to solely be looking at pleasure products as just pleasure products is also limiting the discourse a little bit, because there are people who may or may not like having sex with other people, who may or may not like masturbating, but they know that, you know, a migraine is coming and the one thing that will give them relief is that release. That lack of a medical dialogue around that as well, to say that, you know, sex is about taking care of your personal health and not just experiencing an orgasm, is something that I wished we talked about more as well.
Correct. I think we should start talking about it. You know,
Yeah.
it's just not about pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that sense, like I said, it's not about owning your sexuality. It's also looking at it as an extension of the term wellness. I mean, there's a reason why it's called sexual wellness, because it's not just related to me being bold and saying, oh yes, I'm sexual. It's about the fact that it has all these health benefits also, and that it's an extension of, it's a part of life. So why the hoo-ha about it, right?
Yeah.
So which one is your top selling product?
There is the Sangya strap-on, which is the dildo with the strap-on harness, and that actually makes us very happy because it's a made in India product. It's the first product that Sangya has made over here and manufactured completely here in India. And we didn't know it would be our best-selling product. It's just something that we were experimenting with, and it's taken a long time to make it into what it is today, as opposed to the very first model that we started selling. But that remains our top-selling product at the moment, and that one doesn't even vibrate actually. But in the vibrators, the top-selling product is the 8. It's a simple, plain vibrator, and people love it because it's great for beginners. It's bendable, it's waterproof, it's not intimidating. The girth isn't too much, the length isn't too much. So because so many of our customers are just starting out, it makes a huge difference to have something that doesn't look very, very intimidating, because then they're less likely to shut it down and be like, okay, this is not for me. So that, I think, due to its simplicity, is still our best-selling vibrator on the website.
Okay. And one thing I like about when I check your website, I'm yet to order the product. I will be.
We'll send you a little gift basket.
No, I'll order. I have my own, wish list, and I just order that. So one thing I liked is the product looks very beautiful. Yeah, like my problem with especially in this area, the products that I have seen before, they look like a plastic product which will make lots of noise, kind of a thing,
Correct.
right? So before this, whatever the toy collection that I had is all that I have purchased when my friends were traveling abroad. And then I told them, yeah, please get these things and send the links and all those. India, you hardly get anything, and even if you get, it's like so ugly looking, and like it's a plastic, you're like, what quality kya bana rahe ho karke. Your products looks very beautiful. They look very they look very like classy, it looks really nice. So I like the website. And I like the website as well. But looking at the website, my question is, do you think you're targeting only the LGBTQ community, or it is for anyone? And what kind of traffic that you have on the website? Is it anyone, or those who have more openness regarding their sexuality, if I can put it that way?
I think it's extremely flattering if the majority of the traffic does happen to be LGBTQ, because that just means that with the content that we're creating, we've made a space that feels safe enough for them and is resonating somehow for them to want to come to us and to read our perspective. And I think that's pretty flattering.
Okay. Like one of my friend's daughter, she's a teen, and her mother was showing me her communication with her friend, in a group, and mother was pretty worried about the communication going on. Girl thinks that she's bisexual, and she is talking only with her friends on a WhatsApp group, whatever they have. But somehow mother got the access, and mother is my friend, and she was very worried. I said, give time, like she's too young, let's see all those things. So and I think that time I was discussing with you, right? Like even parents are not aware how to handle all these things. Right, if if a child is going to come and say that my sexual orientation is this, then how to handle all that? Nobody's training us, right? So she was very much worried, and the communication, I was worried about something else. So the girl, she was saying that I'm bisexual. She has written that, and the other friend said that I'm normal. So the girl replied to that. My friend's daughter replied to that by saying that, what do you mean by normal? Am I not normal then? So for like, it's such a, so much of things that are required to talk about this. And I was like, why don't you talk to your daughter that she's normal? There is nothing wrong in what you are saying, and it doesn't mean that it is abnormality. Like, it is not a medical condition that this is the normal blood pressure, anything above is a hypertension and anything below is a hypotension. It's nothing like that.
I love the medical analogy.
Yeah, anything above this is a bisexual.
So this is the criteria of normality. This is what you do is this. And so again, like, and I like the way you said that it's straight couples, right? or straight people versus somebody who has bisexual or any. I'm not very well versed with all the terminologies. I find it difficult. I need to study, of course. But I feel that it's important that we also, this platform is also giving us opportunity to speak about it. And I also feel, being a mother, my daughter is 13, and I have so many friends whose children are teenagers. I feel all the parents, the way, like 3-4 years back, it was very important that we start, or probably 10 years back, everybody was speaking about good touch, bad touch. Children should know. We also got to know that, though we know that the rape cases are happening with children, those who are as young as 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, not just girls, even boys. And that point of time, we understood that in our health education, in our school education, they don't even explain the sex organs in the textbook. Okay, so children, by the time they understand, they're already 14, 15.
Correct.
Teenage pregnancies are happening. Girls are not aware that they can get pregnant. We also know that the suicidal rate is very high in the teenage pregnancy thing. Legalities are involved, MTP legalities are involved, children are not aware. But it is very natural that you feel the urge, but your education system is not even talking about it. So, and at least when we talk in terms of pleasure, in place of guiding them to the porn site, if there are some sites which is speaking about tools as well as how to use it, as well as what is the thing, the dialogue needs to be done. So I think it's just not about your customers, those who are aware or those who want to explore. I think every parent in our country right now needs to study, understand, and be prepared if their children are going to come and talk to them, and be open. Like one point of time, we were not talking about good touch, bad touch. In fact, I'll tell you the funny thing, that when I was young, we were not supposed to talk about menstruation at our home.
Correct.
My dad was not supposed to know about it.
Correct.
And today I see even couples, like I have employees, I have my friends, guys, they openly say that she's menstruating. And she has a PMS. I just need to buy the products for her. They openly talk about it. Whereas my time, we were like supposed to not talk in front of the father, like all these things, right? Like you're not supposed to discuss. I see the evolution is happening. I see people are more open, and I also see that these things needs to be normalized. I don't like to say that normalized. Okay, so your organization is funded, right? Like you have raised one round of funds. So how was that experience, or who are your investors? If you can tell.
We decided last year around this time, or a little earlier, we decided that it was time to manufacture here in India. And for that, of course, we needed capital. The three of us decided that this is something that we want to do long term, and that's when things got very, very serious, even with Sangya. And then we realized that it was a good time to raise a round of funding, and we ended up raising a first round in September, and our investors are Ambesharam. They are the first marketplace for all sex-related products here in India. They started in 2012, and it was actually, the whole round was very quick. Raj, who's the founder of the company, was extremely accommodating, very, very understanding about the fact that this isn't something that we've done before, and I thought it would be a little painful to have a round of investing done, because then you suddenly have this person who's dictating what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do. But so far it hasn't been anything like that. I mean, the only thing that we've had from Ambesharam has been unconditional support for all our needs, and it's sort of put us at ease, because now we're going to raise another round in a few months again, and the way they've sort of interacted with us and the support that they've given us all these last few months have just made everything seem like it's all doable and that it's all possible. So it's been pretty fantastic, because the first round, I think, is the hardest. It's where you're the most jittery, you don't know what's happening, you haven't done this before, everything is very intimidating. So, to have someone to calm you down and say that, yes, all of it is good and we're good to go, just goes a long way.
Yeah, I think it gives you that stability to actually brainstorm and be creative and say, oh, this is as far as I can take things now that I know that this part of the company is solid and stable.
Yeah.
And then it's just, there's so much more space to think freely and think long term than to just feel that, anxiety of what's the next step going to be.
Yeah, so then all our concentration after that first round went into manufacturing in India, and then suddenly the catalog sort of expanded in terms of what we were doing here in India, because the whole idea of Sanjay is that we want to rely as little as possible on imported products, and we want to manufacture as much as we possibly can here in India. But that whole process is very slow because this has not been done here in India
Correct,
before,
correct.
and we were one of the first ones to do it. We have been one of the only ones to do it, and that journey is also very long and uncharted. So to have an investor backing sort of makes it feel like it's more doable.
Okay. So for your next round, do you think Indian investors are open for any kind of a businesses? Because I'm into service industry, and nobody invests in the services business. If you are health tech IT company, and if you are like a 225th, same product into the market, but still you get the funding. Because investor market is very different, right? Like it's a very different thing. So how's your response? Like how's the interest of investors into, if you are reaching out to them, how's the response?
I'd honestly thought my thought process was that there wouldn't be a lot of interest because this has just not been done before. But like I said, there was another company that raised a round of funding last year, and those were all Indian investors, and that was also the first institutional funding in this sector last year. And like I said, that has opened up a lot of doors. And following that, I am seeing a lot of interest. I mean, there will be people who will look at this and look at the look at the taboo aspect of this industry and refrain from investing. But anyone who's a serious investor will also look at it and realize what a nascent
business.
industry this is, and how it's on a verge of a boom.
Yeah.
So it would be a smart thing to do to invest, and anybody who is serious about investing realizes that. So there is, in that sense, there is a lot of interest from anyone who is thinking about making serious amounts of money. So while we've sort of sent feelers out and spoken to some people, there is a lot of interest. We're sort of holding off because we're going to get our first Indian-made manufactured vibrator in our hands in about a month or so, and we're launching into nutraceuticals. It's only after all of that launch happens that we're going to think about doing the next round in about 6 odd months. But the conversations, you still talking to people in the industry, the investors, so you get a feel of how things are. And there is a lot of interest. People realize how this is just on the verge of a boom. So I'm personally very optimistic about this.
Yeah. So, and what's your future plan? You want to get more kinds of products in your portfolio, or you are looking at? You said you are planning to get into nutraceutical as well, or focusing more on education. What's the plan?
So the plan is to at some point be completely self-reliant, in the sense that to not have to procure anything from China, and to manufacture more and more complicated vibrators and products here in India. At the moment, what's going to come out in the next 1 month is going to be our first very basic vibrator, and but that's just the start. And it's for this that we want to raise another round, so that we can get more heavily into manufacturing here in India, so that the reliance on China, so to speak, can go down. So that even when there's a situation such as COVID, where countries shut down entirely, it doesn't impact businesses. It doesn't shut us down. And in that sense, I think that would be very helpful. Where nutraceuticals are concerned, yes, we're launching those hopefully in a month. And the idea of Sangya is to not just manufacture in India, but to also have an entire ecosystem of anything pleasure related manufactured and sold here in India. So that involves your nutraceuticals, it involves all the accessories where your pleasure products are concerned, it involves skincare, which we're already doing. So it's the expansion of the catalog that we're looking at, all of it though manufactured here in India. So that is the future of Sangya. And I think in a couple of years, the range of what is manufactured here versus what is imported will have that ratio will have changed, and that's the direction that we want to go in.
Okay. And in terms of market, like geographically speaking, is it only the metro cities those who are interested in your product, or do you have, yeah?
You
Oh
want
my
to add
God.
to the
Yeah, it is. Again, there were so many misconceptions about this whole industry when we started. When we started, we were so certain that our customers are primarily going to be from all the metro cities, from the big four cities. We couldn't have been more wrong. Majority of our sales come from tier 2 cities. Majority of them. And this is data that we see on a monthly basis because we sit and we analyze, right? Because then that sort of has an impact on everything else, like how you want to market, how you want to brand it, where you want to push, so on and so forth. All of it is from tier 2 cities, actually. So yeah, it's pretty impressive.
I think tier 1 is how you break through with your presence on social media
Correct.
for sexual wellness space and sexual brands. But the people buying, the people who know what they're looking for, the people with the most questions, a lot of it comes from tier 2 cities. And I think we've discussed this before as well, where it looks like sometimes with tier 1 spaces, the assumption is that, oh, I can just Google this. I know what sex is about. I know what pleasure is about. I don't have to ask these questions. So there's a little more hesitation that, you think everyone around you already knows. So if you ask, then people may think you're stupid. So there's a lot of shame. There's a lot of fear of coming across as ignorant. But in tier 2 spaces, I think the curiosity is something that it's like it exists more openly and more freely, where people are just like, no, I want to know, so you tell me.
Yeah.
So the questions come a little more freely. They're more aware of what kind of things they want to experiment with or explore with. So they come to the website also knowing exactly what kind of experience they want to have or what category of product or pleasure they're looking for. And they will ask you very pointed questions, so you can then just tell them, how your catalog can serve them. So that was very interesting for us to notice the difference with the tier 1, tier 2
Correct.
mindsets.
And I think that's what I'll say beauty of India as well as irony. I feel that people over here are very open-minded, not the way it is portrayed on media that we are very conservative, orthodox country. It's not like that. I will tell you my personal experience that when I started being a single mom and moved to Pune, my friends were very much worried because I was in Bangalore and friends were like, Bangalore is a metro city and it's nobody cares, nobody will ask you questions or anything. Are you sure about Pune? And I'm telling you, it's been like 7 years now. Me, my daughter, we'll live very happily, kind of a thing. But nobody actually, ever made me uncomfortable by saying that, are you a single mother, or how do you manage, or all those things. Nobody. People are like very normal, nice. I mean, the way you said, no, that usually you think that you'll get hate, but actually you do not, and you're like, oh, what's happening? And I also feel that our country, otherwise, people are very open. In terms of sexuality and all those things, we know that in our media we don't openly speak about it, right? In movies, thankfully there are no roses or flowers anymore. But still, there is nothing openly also as well. Like it's still very much under the carpet. They speak everything, all the things. Having said that, but I think and I don't want to quote that, okay, Kama Sutra, when all and Swayamvar used to happen and it's very feminist kind of a country earlier. Now we are not. But I think what we see in the mainstream media or movies or anything, it's not the real world. Real world is pretty normal and people are like, okay, this is what I need, this is what I do not understand, this is what I go ahead. So that's what I think it's a very different country compared to what we think, and I am very happy to know that tier 2 cities, and Pune is a tier 2 city in as per definition. We are not. We are a pretty good city, I guess. And in terms of the customer, if we are trying to understand, are these the guys those who are buying more, or the girls those who are buying more? Who are your customers?
It's everything, everyone. We've had women buying for themselves as individuals. We've seen them buying as groups of friends where they had WhatsApp groups and they set reminders ki sale is coming up. Guys, we need to shop at so and so hour, and they would all come to the website together and then discuss on the WhatsApp group who bought what, and and give each other reviews. We've had people message us saying, I really want to buy this to surprise my wife on our anniversary. Or
Honeymoons.
Yeah, I'm leaving for my honeymoon on this date, so please deliver by this particular date so I can
Birthday
surprise
gifts.
my wife. Birthdays as well.
Yeah.
There have also been people who are, in long distance relationships. So then when they plan their trip to meet somewhere, they're just like, can you deliver to this hotel room
Yeah.
before I reach there? So then I can surprise my partner. So it's been a mix really, because there were people who were just like, I'm at home, I want to experiment and figure out what my body likes or doesn't like. There were people who said, I'm a survivor of trauma or I'm a survivor of rape, so I'm not ready for people to touch me, but I want to experience some kind of sensation and see if a toy helps me sort of get ready for the human touch again. So we've had those people shop from us as well.
Yeah. You know that there's a series on Prime, Fleabag. It's my favorite. And she gives her sister for her birthday a vibrator.
Dressed like her.
Oh, yeah. Correct. And it's one of my. So when I was watching this, I was like, oh, that's a nice gift. That's a nice gift. I should.
There's
I
a
should
lot
think
of
about it.
gifting between friends,
Yes,
which we haven't
yes,
anticipated.
yeah. And that's a good thing. And what about the age group? Is it something like couples, those who are later point of time, they lose the interest in sex, or intimacy, and do they think that okay, now adding these pleasure toys is going to get back the charm that we used to have in the initial days? Hormonally fine. Initially, you all feel excited. Later point of time, you get used to the partner. Later, it gets like okay, I'm getting too much used to the partner. And then you're like, okay, brother, sister staying in the same house kind of a thing. Like all the typical Indian marriage stories that happen. But although the typical Indian couples, are they exploring or do you have those customer line as well? Are they thinking that they should?
Yes, I think a very normal part of this journey is to find age groups, say between 25 to 45. But that's mainly because so many of us have a stronger social media presence, and digital spaces are not being used for conversations on pleasure and sexuality by all age groups, right? Someone on the older age group is probably just using it to find out if their niece and nephew is doing okay in that other country, etc. So the usage of Instagram or other social media platforms is not the same. But now places like Times of India and so many other newspapers as well are on print, talking about these brands as well, talking about us, talking about the options available. And that's when you realize that older people are also showing an interest in exploring their sexuality, right? We've had divorcees come to us and saying that I'm not entirely sure what I was experiencing was actually in the realm of pleasure. So I want to try a toy just by myself, no pressure from a partner, and to just figure out if this is something I like.
Correct.
We've had I think men in their 60s who contacted us saying that they wanted to get something for their wives because they wanted to make sure that their wives were having a good experience. So it wasn't so much ki, oh, we've been married so long that now, chalo, we have to try toys. It was more like if I can give you one more experience, why not?
Correct.
So we've seen that curiosity across age groups. People are just very excited to make each other happy. It's very sweet.
Yeah. And
I think also a lot of our customer base is quite young, and I think that's to do with the price point. Our toys are very reasonably priced as compared to some of the others available out there. And just due to that price point, it ends up attracting a younger crowd, people who've just graduated from college, who've just gotten jobs, who are just starting out work and don't have salaries that will support them having extremely extravagantly expensive toys. So just from the price point perspective also, there is that other extreme of having a younger crowd who are not just experimenting and finding out, but also come to us because we're just reasonably priced.
Correct.
And accessibility generally has been a very big thing for Sangya, because the whole idea was that the whole idea has been that we don't want you to sell a kidney for a toy. We want it to be reasonably priced so that you get to have these experiences.
Correct.
So yeah, I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah, and I don't know when we will be able to, but and I'll see. I don't know whether people will be open for this idea, but there are very good communities for senior citizens, geriatric community. We have very good apartment complexes that are there. They are high end, and I have seen those the senior community, and they're like a very cute ponytail uncle driving a bike, and they're like really cute people. And I feel even at that age, it's not that, if you are alone, if you do not have a partner, or if you are just two of you staying in a community, but and it's not just a simple, haha games that is going to make you happy. You need something for your own pleasure. And I think that's a big market as well. That those who need to know that these options tools are available for them, and they can actually still enjoy the pleasure, because sexuality does not end with age. It ends when you do not want it, right? Like,
Correct.
I don't know if I'm right about
No,
that.
Correct,
absolutely.
absolutely. In fact, we were having this discussion just a few weeks back about how after a certain age, it's just sort of assumed that you don't experience pleasure.
Yeah.
And I don't think anything could be further from the truth, because I don't think age has anything to do with the feeling of pleasure. Your body may or may not be able to do certain things, but the experience of pleasure does not change.
Yeah.
And it's a largely ignored aspect of pleasure.
Correct.
That it can be enjoyed at that age, or that it can be enjoyed
Yeah.
at any age.
Correct.
And I think that's what my biggest fear is with the way we talk about pleasure as well, is that when you don't define pleasure, you make it very difficult to then also properly define consent, which then makes it harder for people to identify acts of non-consensual behavior towards them. You see this not only with children who are denied information about their bodies and what is okay and what is not okay, but you also see this happening to elder people who are in, elder homes, senior citizens homes and everything.
Correct.
Where, because there is no space for them to have that dialogue, there is no respect shown towards their sexuality and their agency, it becomes very hard then for them to communicate when there is a certain act of non-consensual activity towards them and their bodies. That violence is not discussed at all. And the reason that violence is not discussed is because we have failed to simultaneously create room for pleasure. You can't only talk about one without the other. The best way to learn is when you understand what both of them look like and which is which. You can only tell the difference when you have the other one to compare.
Correct.
So I think that is another reason why this dialogue across age groups is something that we're really trying to push for, because you are vulnerable at any age and you can also want pleasure at any age.
True. You know that it's not a very direct analogy, but so many people nowadays, they say that I have a very disturbed sleep, or I cannot sleep early and quickly, and then I keep staying awake whole night. And many of my friends, those who are into fitness or anything, most of the people, they complain that sleep is a big problem. Okay, so, and it's not melatonin or any kind of a supplement is not the answer. It's not how you when you sleep and how you sleep. It's how you spend your day. So there is one very famous Instagrammer, I forgot his name. So he is like, if you're not tired, how you're going to get to
Correct.
sleep? Okay, अगर नींद नहीं आ रही है तो 5 किलोमीटर दौड़ के आ जाओ. So it's a very funny reel is there. So actually, if it's about how you spend your day, defines how great your sleep will be. In whole day you're just sitting and doing nothing. You're not getting tired. There is no metabolism happening in your body. You're just like sloth kind of a thing. Then how you're going to get tired and sleep? But if you travel whole day, you work whole day. You just wait for that time that, oh my God, I'm done for the day, and you quickly get into nice good sleep. So similarly, right, it's always the two sides of the coin.
Yeah.
It's not just you talk about, okay, like whether the pleasure, it's both the aspects are important. The another population that I personally feel, and I think I'm taking this as an opportunity to talk about it, is so two things. One is recently I've been to one of a very famous hospital. It's a project that we are doing, and I was talking to andrologists, and we were talking about implants, penile implant for erectile dysfunction. And my thinking was, because we don't study so much all these things in your basic MBBS course. So my thinking was probably geriatric population requires implant for erectile dysfunction. And I asked, he's like, so I was talking to the doctor. Doctor said that 2 minutes back, the patient who just left my OPD is 24-year-old guy. So as young as 24-year-old is having erectile dysfunction who requires implant. Okay, and which was a very surprising thing for me, that as at that age he needs implant. Similarly, when we talk about the whole healthcare scenario, and I think we discussed last time, That think about a child who's probably 18, 19, unfortunately underwent or met with one road traffic accident, now having paralysis, bedridden, either in the hospital or at home. It's not away from the requirement of the pleasure, right? Have all the desires that a person will should have. We prescribe medications, we talk about whether bed sores should happen or not, okay, and how to care for the body or
Correct.
nutrition. But I don't think any person, either the family or the doctor, is asking with how you're taking care of your mental health and your sexual health. Do you need, or how you're taking care of it? And these people, those they also need. So when I was looking at your portfolio of all your products, I was like, oh, I wish even doctors start prescribing all these things to
Correct.
patients. Those who
Yeah.
have probably the spine injury, probably the road traffic accident, probably on the
Hmm.
bed, or bedridden, or for chronic illness because of that, maybe
Yeah.
stroke. Okay, those who need these things. But I don't know whether we'll have that kind of openness in our society, whether we can ask, like, or can I gift that to the patient, friend of mine or somebody I know? Okay, can I do that? So I
Yeah.
think, if I'll ask that how much Sangya should reach to more people, is when probably doctors start prescribing to their bedridden patient.
Yeah.
Or yeah.
I think it's a conversation around pleasure that has taken a step further, right? I mean, at the moment, we're at a place where the conversation about sex is just opening up, where it's beginning to be seen as something that's just a daily part of life. What you're talking about is also a conversation that has a direct relation to the physical well-being of a person vis-a-vis sex.
Yeah.
And that's taking it a step further. Now we're still only dealing with the taboo, where it's just where we're talking about sex as not just an act to perform to make babies, but as pleasure. To take it a step further would be to relate it to health. And you're right, because there are various aspects in which the physical health of it all gets impacted by sex, can be bettered by sex, like you said, with menstruation, migraines, trauma, like you said, about the well-being of a person who's been in a physically traumatic accident. But and I do see those happening, maybe not right now, unfortunately, but it is the natural evolution of where this conversation is going to go at some
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
It would have to lead there, starting now, where we stop talking about it as something that's just done between a husband and a wife to pop babies.
Yeah, correct. But then, while we know that over a period of time this will happen, we see one person will start talking. We know that so many opportunities, and it'll get normalized. People will discuss.
Absolutely.
What about the regulatory regulations and norms and laws? How that is supporting? You're a lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, we're so far behind on that front, in the sense that till the time it is any reference to sex itself is seen as obscene, you're essentially curbing an entire population from thinking of it as anything other than something that is absolutely disgusting. If you define everything to do with sex as obscene, you already created that narrative. Then how is anyone supposed to move beyond that to look at it as something that is not just used for reproductive purposes, that is used for pleasure, that is used for health benefits, for mental health benefits, for physical health benefits? That concept, for it to reach there, these barricades need to be dealt with beforehand. And that's our biggest obstacle. I mean, anyone who's in this industry, the biggest reason why nobody wants to enter this industry is because nobody wants to deal with how obscure the laws are about this. Although the law doesn't outright ban sex products, pleasure products, sex toys, there is just a gray piece of legislature that is just being used for decades on end to say that this is illegal when it's not illegal. It is a mere misrepresentation and misinterpretation. And till we do away with that, the conversation is always going to be limited in that sense. We're still going to be over here talking about this, asking for change, where any substantial change can just not take place at the pace at which it should ideally take place. But that's just one of the challenges.
Okay. Do you see that we'll have stores in India ever?
Not for a while. Not till
Legally, it's not allowed to start a store.
it's not that. The thing is that because like I said, the law is itself so grey, nobody wants to go close to it, right? Also, for some reason, anything to do with sex ends up offending so many sentiments, which is strange because everyone likes it, but it also offends everyone. So as long as it's done behind closed doors to make babies, it's all good. But to have a store, it's going to offend so many people. Somebody tried that in Goa a couple of years ago, and it shut down in a few weeks, I think. And I'm really quite surprised that it lasted that long, considering how people generally react to everything to do with sex. It's just also, I mean, even apart from the legality of it all, people do view this as, and rightly so, as something that is deeply personal, right? I mean, to go to a store, to step into a store, to have the store people look at what toys you're looking at, what it is that you're putting in your shopping bag, involves a lot of you would have to be very, very comfortable with people knowing what it is that you're purchasing. And I would go so far as to say that most of the population would not be, because it is deeply personal. It's just easier to do it online because you're also battling all these years of conditioning where you have been constantly told that sex is bad, sex is disgusting, and you don't do it for pleasure, and pleasure is bad. You're already fighting that conditioning that all of us have collectively had when you click on that store online and you put that item in your cart. Now, to do that physically involves a lot more. You're battling shame, whether you realize it or not. I mean, it may be easier for some than for others, but you're still doing that at some level. So where stores are concerned, legality aside, just from a privacy perspective, I don't see that happening in India for a while to come.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
I think the first step to get in that direction would be for people to not be putting sanitary pads and condoms in black bags
I
of
know,
brown
I know,
envelopes and
yeah.
then wrapping it up and then chup chup ke leaving the canvas.
Correct.
We can't even do that
Yeah.
without it being a normal conversation, right? So dildos dur ki baat.
I know. Like, and especially the sanitary pads, I find it like really surprising the way. So, one is that they put it into that brown packet. I don't know why I have to hide it when I'm walking. Second thing, my dog, I think I told you about this, I don't know. So, we went to Phoenix Mall and the guys can just walk into through the security check, they check and this. For girls, there is a curtain.
Yeah.
Okay. And my daughter asked me that why we need so much of privacy. I said, we'll ask the lady. Okay?
Yeah.
So I don't understand that why do we need, like, what is there that I just cannot just simply put my, and even at airport and everywhere, it's
Yeah.
like that grey, dark room
Yeah.
that is there for me where I should just stand and I don't know if something is going to happen. I don't know why it is that. I'm still thinking that why.
That's because everything to do with our bodies has to be shrouded in shame all the time, right? I mean, we are not allowed to explore our bodies. We're not allowed to show off our bodies. We're not allowed to be comfortable with our bodies without there being a very heavy dose of shame attached to it. And that permeates so much that you see it in daily things such as airport checks where you're going to be taken behind a dark
behind the
curtain.
yes.
But I actually want to flip that question on its head a little bit, because what if it's also this idea that men don't need privacy as much as we do? And the reason I'm saying that is simply because even in men's bathrooms, right, their urinals are just open.
Yeah,
that's quite
They don't get
ridiculous.
any privacy when they're taking a pee break. We have individual stalls where we shut the door and we get that space. With men, it's just like, you either have the confidence to, get half undressed in front of other men, or you hold it in and wait till you get home.
Correct.
So yeah,
it's
the
quite
conversation,
ridiculous. Yes.
the conversation on privacy and how we've added gender also to the conversation of privacy instead of just making it uniform for everyone is very strange.
Yeah, and I think I'm sure that there must be men, those who must be saying that, I need privacy. Yeah, like, why should I just simply stand?
Yeah, why should you have to zip down?
Yeah.
So for Sanghya, what do you want from, like, of course, everyone who starts the organization, they want to reach to maximum people. Everybody wants to make great business, be the unicorn, be on Forbes, whatever the under what, 30 under 30 or whatever your criteria you fit into. So what's your wish? Like, what's your wish for your organization? Whom you want to reach out to?
I think to see Sanghya's content and the essays that we've collected and built over time, to take that outside the digital space and to have it available in more than just English would be a great step for like for me to feel like we're actually going in the right direction, because even now so many of our writers are coming from different places in the country, and there's so much cultural context that I feel like we're just missing with how a person was raised and what kind of conditioning they had around sex, simply because we're expecting so much of the dialogue to happen in English itself. I'm very curious to see what happens when people get the opportunity to write about sex and pleasure in their first language, which may be Tamil or Kannada, and to be able to connect to a wider audience and to be able to define consent and define healthy, normal sex lives in different languages, and not be limited to just virtual conversations alone. So I think that is definitely a step that I want to see Sangya take.
Yeah, I mean that on the education front, the reach, I think we would like to have it reach to people in more languages than just English. But apart from just the education, where manufacturing is concerned, like I said, the idea is to have more products manufactured here in India and to have less reliance on any other country to import products, and to have at some point our entire range manufactured here in India, which is also something that has not been done before. And that prospect to me is very, very exciting, to have an entire ecosystem where sex and sexuality is concerned, whether it be your tools for sex, for your education, or anything that's surrounding um, the pleasure tools such as kinkware. All the entire ecosystem manufactured here in India by Sangya is the dream.
Okay. I wish you all the best. And one of the great thing is Tier 2 Pune. It's not the startup hub the other cities are, and sitting over here thinking something that probably people won't even dare to, start the organization. Everybody wants to take the easy way, right?
Yeah.
It's very easy for doing something that is with the flow, with the the
Yeah.
way a country works. But going out of all, and it's not easy to speak about this in our country. We know
Correct.
that there are, of course, we are lucky that we don't get too much of hatred, all that. But we know that how conservative we are at one point of time or sometime. But all three of you, like it takes lots of courage to actually say this is what is required. I'm going to do it. So, and it's not easy. We think that okay, it's just a company. Second is it's very easy to start the company that we know it's already a proof of concept and there is something. So
Yeah.
like some company in US working really good. I create the similar kind of a company in India, and I feel that I'm doing something great, kind of thing. So that's, and that, like similar kind of a product, similar kind of, you just replicate. But when the culture and when the complete our ecosystem works in such a different way, including our legalities and other things, with that again thinking about these things, when it is so important, I really really wish, of course nobody wish that you will have too much of competition, but at least in the education
Correct.
thing, especially the area that you are operating, I really want that more organizations should actually take this as a business.
Yeah.
More people should start talking about it, right? And they should actually create more segregation. Okay, these people are focusing on educating children, these people are helping young people to actually understand how this works and how to make the advantage of this, and make your partner happy as well as make yourself happy. So there's nothing wrong in it, right? Like giving surprise is not nothing wrong in it. You should also, married people, they should think that there is always beyond. Children have gone to college and all those things. What I'm planning, it's just not the Europe tour every time, right?
Yeah.
You can invest that money into something else as well.
Yeah.
So through your organization, I really want that change to happen, and I want to see that change happening. And I'll support as much as possible. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for giving your time today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and we'll discuss more whenever we'll get opportunity or any other specific topic we
Sounds
want to
good.
talk.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.